Hello everyone, welcome to Pocket Japan, and welcome to the biggest and probably the most important kanji lesson you'll ever find on my channel, simply because we will be tackling the numbers this time. Now, teaching you the numbers means teaching you more than just how to count from 1 to 10. I'll also teach you how to combine these numbers and make really big numbers, like for example 23,771 for example. With this video you will have all you need to know to make big numbers like that. So it's quite an important lesson, but I also have to make a small disclaimer. Teaching you how to count, like 1, 2, 3, is different from teaching you how to count things or objects or people. Simply because, if you count things in Japanese, then you have to use a certain counter word, which is a unique character. It's a specific character, and the character varies depending on what you're counting. So for example, you have the number, I'll just do a hashtag like this, followed by the character for person, would be counting people, followed by the character for counting small animals. It's pronounced as hiki. Or, you have a specific character for counting minutes, or a specific character for counting months, or a specific character for counting long cylindrical objects, or flat objects, etc, etc. It's quite complicated. I'll probably have to devote quite a lot of videos in the future on that, on specific counter words and how to use them in sentences. But for now, let's just teach you the basic numbers. Okay, so the first number I'll teach you would be number 1, of course. Number 1 is quite easy. It's the easiest kanji in the language, arguably, and it's just one horizontal stroke. Usually it's pronounced as ichi. Ichi. The next one, I'll just write it underneath, would be 2, and following the same trend, in this case you have 2 horizontal stripes, or strokes. Note that the lower stroke has to be a little longer than the upper one. It's just the way to balance the kanji aesthetically, I guess, but just try and remember that. And it's pronounced as ni, if it's just, used by itself. Ichi, ni. The next one, number 3, is similarly 3 strokes, horizontal strokes. Now note that the lowest stroke is the longest one and the middle stroke is the shortest one. You can be quite free in how you balance these 3. You can probably even have the upper stroke be just as long as the lowest stroke, like this. It doesn't really matter too much, but 3 is pronounced as san. We're going at quite a good pace, but I guess there are a lot of numbers to teach. 4. Now that is a little different, so you have to make a box, and you do this, and you close off the box, and it's pronounced as yon. So I'll write it again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 strokes. Yon. Now, a different pronunciation would sometimes, with certain counter words, you wouldn't say yon followed by the counter word, but you would say shi followed by the counter word, so shi. That is also why in certain, in old Japanese buildings, if you have like an elevator and you want to pick a floor, they would usually have 1, 2, 3, and then skip 4, and then go to 5 immediately. The reason for that is because another meaning of the pronunciation shi would be this character, and this is the character for dying, and they don't want, parking lots or floor numbers to be, associated with death. Okay, next up we have 5. 5 is written like this. It's actually one of my more favorite kanji. I just like the way it writes automatically like this. And it's pronounced as go. Go. So now we have ichi, ni, san, yon, go. Next up is 6, number 6, and it is this upper part followed by 2 strokes underneath. So it's 4 strokes in total. It's pronounced as roku, roku. Now note, again, the pronunciation of roku can vary. If you use it with certain counter words, the pronunciation can be like, the word can be like pulled together pronunciation-wise. So for example, roku followed by hiki, which is a counter word for small animals. If you put that together, so 6 small animals, then you would have to pronounce it not as roku hiki, but as roppiki. It kind of becomes like merged together. Okay, next up is number 7. 7 is pronounced as nana, but again, just with number 4, where number 4 is both pronounced as yon and shi, nana is pronounced also as shichi. So it depends. You have nana or shichi. I don't know why the first stroke disappeared like that. There we go. And you write it as follows. It's 2 strokes. There we go. So you first do a sort of slightly slanted stroke like that, and then you go through it. You have to go through it. And you must not forget the hook at the end, like this. Here we go. Nana. Okay, let's clear up our screen now and move on to number 8. Number 8. Also a really easy one. It's pronounced as hachi, and it's just these 2 strokes. Quite easy. Let's move onwards. Well, I guess I can leave the 8 there. Number 9. 9. This one is written like this, so you must try and get some sort of hook in the first stroke. It's pronounced as Q, by the way. Q. So now if we count from 1 to 9, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's it. Okay, so again, if you want to write this kanji, try and make sure that there is some sort of like hook here at the end. Otherwise, it's difficult to distinguish. It can look like a different character if you don't do that. That's a proper way to write it. And then last but not least, number 10. It's a big one. I don't know why my 0 was so small. It's just a cross. It's quite easy. There we go. And it's pronounced as ju, along, ju. Ju. There we go. So I'll write the numbers from 1 to 10 in hiragana, simply so that you know how to pronounce them correctly if my pronunciation is a little off. So number 1 is ichi. Number 2 is ni. Number 3 is san. Number 4 is yon or shi. Number 5 is go. Number 6 is roku. Number 7 is nana or shichi. Number 8 is hachi. Number 9 is kyu. Kyu. And number 10 is ju. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is how to count from 1 to 10. Now, if you want to make numbers, bigger than 10, you just combine the numbers. So, for example, let's write down some numbers. 31, let's just do 17 before that. I guess it's most logic. And 89. There we go. How to write these in Japanese? It's not just simply as, like switching the 1 into the character for 1 and switching the 7 into the character for 7. That is not how you write 17. You actually have to distinguish the order. How do I put this in English? It's quite easy to understand but difficult to explain. Basically, you just do it like this. So in this case, 17 would be just 10 followed by 7. So you have 17. 17. So this means 10 and this means 7. If you add the 2, you get 17. So that's kind of the logic in Japanese. It's a bit different from our languages. And then 31 would then be, of course, 3 plus 10. Well, 3 times 10 plus 1. There we go. So you get something like 31. 31. So you always have to specify whether something is like, is like in the tens or hundreds or thousands, etc. So you always have to write the kanji for 10 behind the number that is specifying the amount of tens that you need. The explanation is more complicated than the actual practice. So similarly, 89 would just be 8 times 10 plus 9. So you would get the following characters. 89. 89 would be 89. There we go. Now let's move on to the hundreds, because there is a special character for 100 as well. So, you have, this is 10. And if you want to write 100, then you write the following character. It is pronounced as hyaku. 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 Again, this pronunciation can slightly vary. Like for example, with roku, if we want to say 600, it would not be rokuhyaku, but it would be merged together into roppyaku. All these different pronunciations are quite a hassle to remember, so that's why I'll have to devote several videos on, counting different things depending on what you're counting. I've already said this a couple times, but it's really important. Anyway, so hyaku. Similarly, if you want to make big numbers in the hundreds now, so you can again make numbers like 737, for example, or 382. Let's do this for practice. Do you know what this could be? 737? It's just 7 times 100, 3 times 10, and then a 7 at the end. So you have the character for 7, the character for 100, the character for 3, the character for 10, the character for 7 to finish it off. So you got 737. Similarly, 382 would be the character for 3, followed by the character for 100. So 300, 300, 80, 80, and then a 2 at the end. There we go. So you pronounce these as follows. 700, 737, 737. Or 382 would be 382, 382. Can be quite fast. There we go. Now the next order is 1000. Now to refresh, this is 10, this is 100, or the hundreds, and then this would be 1000. That's how you write it, and it's pronounced as sen by itself. But the number 1000 is actually a 1 followed by the character for 1000, so it's pronounced as isen. Isen. There we go. Again, we can make numbers with this. We're just, making bigger numbers as we go along. Let's make up some numbers. So you have 1,233 and 9,862, for example. 1,233. So first you would have 1,000, 200, 30, 3. 1,000, 1,200, 200, 30, 33, 3. 1,233. Do you guys get the picture now? Now let's try this one together. By the way, if you want to practice this as you go along, then pause the video and try, the next number by yourself and see if it's correct. 9,862. 9, followed by the character for 1,000, sen, followed by 8, followed by 100, followed by 6 with 10 behind it, 60, and then a 2 at the end. So you get 9,862. There we go. By the way, sometimes you might see stuff like, the same number that I just wrote, 9,862, I'll write it here. Sometimes you can see it written as this as well. It's also a valid way of writing the numbers. It can be a bit easier to read, I guess. Although I would probably just stick with complete Japanese numbers or complete Roman numerals. They can also just use numbers like this in Japan, by the way. The next one, there is actually a specific word for indicating 10,000, and that is where the numbers get really complicated. Because in our language system, well, in Western languages, if you have big numbers, you usually group them together by 3. So for example, like 723,337,802, for example. So you group them together by 3s. In Japan, you group them together by 4s. So you would get, well, I'll just first write it down because it's quite, So you get 7 times the character for, I think it's 100, no, I think it's a million. Or was it 100,000? Yeah, I'm gonna have to check, as I go along. Even I'm not an expert. Followed by 2,333 times the character for 10,000, followed by 7,802. So you group them together by 4, and this can get really complicated. Now, anyway, I was getting started with the 10,000. There we go. Oh, I'll probably devote another video on just making big numbers because it's quite an interesting topic, and it's good for practice, I guess. So yeah, the character for 10,000, let's do a recap. So this is 10, ju, then this is 100, 100, this is 1,000, isen, or sen in this case, it's just pronounced as sen by itself. And then the next one is this one, and it's pronounced as mon. But the same thing, if you want to write 10,000 by itself, it's not just mon, it's actually ichiman. You have to specify that it's 1 time 10,000, so ichiman or ichiman, depending on how you want to write it. Ichiman. 1,000 yen. 10,000 yen is about $100. There we go. So let's make big numbers again. Just 2, I guess. 71,293. Well, you have 7man or 7man. I think it's 7man. I'll write it in kanji. 7,293. Okay. So 70,293. Okay, 71,293 is how you write it. Is how you read it. Okay, I guess we'll leave it at that. There is one last character, and that is for specifying numbers with 8 zeros behind them. I even have to wonder how much is this? This is 1,000, 1 million. So okay, for 10 million, you have a specific character as well, and it's pronounced as oku. And this is how you write it, oku. I mean, you wouldn't really use this too much in Japanese, I guess. So again, you can make really big numbers with like 8 or 9 digits. But I think we'll just leave it at that. Now you just know how to count. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to write them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you go upwards to 100, 100. Upwards to 1,000 or thousands is sen. Upwards to 10,000s is man. And upwards to 10 million is oku, although you barely use those, I think. Now, there you go. This is the introduction to Japanese numbers. At least you can make quite big numbers now. I haven't made... Oh, yeah. I think I've made enough exercises now. If you want me to make, a separate video just solely converting numbers into Japanese numbers, it would be good practice for you guys to try and for me to, refresh it as well. Still, hopefully you learned a thing or two, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. I'll definitely make more videos on numbers and how to combine numbers with... each other, because the pronunciation can change quite a lot. You can look all this up on the internet if you want, but I can make a separate video on that if you want. Now, thank you very much for watching. If you have any advice or feedback or questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. I'll definitely get back to you, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.